We're going to talk about the biggest non-issue ever to hit the front page of the Register later in the show with one of 33 current state employees who were fired and then rehired. It's a non-story, and we'll tell you why later in the program when Clementine Carl joins us. Also, Dr. Karen Huffer, who has been on the show before. She's from Colorado Springs. She's going to join us for a conversation about her perspective on gun violence and on the tragic situation in Sandy Hook. But first, Dr. David Drake, a local family psychiatrist, is going to join us to talk about America's obesity epidemic and healthy lifestyle choices we all need to be thinking about as we move into the new year, and also policies that might have an impact on those decisions.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
What the heck's that about? That's Brother Truckers downtown in slow motion. Don't know why that happened. We'll leave that up to the gods of technology to figure out. Folks, I do want to thank Brother Trucker, and I want to remind you that Andy Fleming with Brother Trucker will be the opening act at the Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter comedy show this coming Sunday at House of Bricks. Hope you'll show up. This is a fundraiser to keep me out of the big house. Leonard Boswell sued me after I pointed out that he offered me a job not to run against him in 2008. Silly idea on his part because I've got, there are 3 witnesses. But anyway, we got to move ahead with, I got to defend myself or who knows what happens. So we are raising money for that. I appreciate those who've contributed so far. If you'd like to do that, you can go to my website, fallonforum.com, click on support, or better yet, come to the comedy show. It's going to be a blast. Lee Camp is going to join us from all the way from New York. It's his first comedy show in Des Moines ever. And if you want to know more about Lee Camp, check him out, leecamp.com. Great guy. He did some great stuff on Fox News once. Also, local talent, Colin Ryan, Scott Vermolm, and Dan Umtham going to be part of that as well. Again, 7 to 9 p.m. Sunday night at House of Bricks. I want to thank the Sierra Club as well and the Physicians for Social Responsibility for sponsoring this program, and also Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. Gateway Market, a great place to buy healthy food, and we're talking healthy food, and we're talking about healthy lifestyles. America has an obesity epidemic. I think we all are aware of that. We're kind of divided on what to do about it. I'm delighted to have somebody who has thought long and hard about this and has himself made quite an effort to make sure his lifestyle is healthy. A local family therapist, psychiatrist David Drake is with us in the studio. David, welcome to the show.
Good, thank you, Ed.
Step up to the mic there a bit,
okay.
and
Yeah.
And so you write frequently for the Des Moines Register, and so people who subscribe to the paper may be familiar with some of your thoughts on this. But give us your take on the issue, just to kick off the conversation.
Well, as many people have written in my article also, which was back in November, it's a huge epidemic now as far as people being overweight and obese. I think the most recent statistic as far as Iowa is that about a third of Iowans are overweight and to the point of being obese.
And
So
overweight is defined as 30 pounds beyond your ideal weight, correct?
Well, I believe obesity is 20% beyond one's ideal weight. But people know obesity. It's kind of like pornography. You know it when you see it. And it is a huge issue. And
no pun intended.
I am not an expert in nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist. I went to osteopathic medical school here and then did a rotating internship and then did a residency in psychiatry. But I got into this issue partly because of concern, not just about obesity, but just about lifestyle in general. About when I was 59, I began thinking about turning 60, and I was already in good health. My lab work was already good, but I wanted to maintain that. And I want to plug a few things right now, just for our listeners. I'll mention this for those who aren't watching this on video. But one thing that got me interested in this initially was a DVD that's available on Netflix called Forks Over Knives. It was shown at the Floor Theater.
Forks Over Knives.
6 weeks. And that is one DVD I'd like to recommend people look at. It's on Netflix. Also, a sequel to that is a DVD called The Engine 2 Kitchen Rescue. I'll show this also. This is also available on Netflix. This is by the son of Dr. Esselstyn, who is on the Forks Over Knives DVD. And two other things I want to plug quickly is especially this one. This is a very easy read and a very good read. It's by Michael Pollan, who is a journalist. I'm sure that Ed has heard
Michael
about this guy.
Pollan is good stuff. His Omnivore's Dilemma was one of the better books I've ever read on diet and nutrition.
And he wrote this book called Food Rules. And I like the fact that this is not about diet, this is about life change. Someone once wrote that diet is something you go off of. But increasingly, and as Pollan also writes about, is it seems like increasingly nutritionists agree on one thing, that basically a plant-centered, a plant-focused diet is the healthiest way you can go. People will differ about things around the periphery of that. Right. But his 3 rules in this Food Rules Eater's Manual by Michael Pollan is Polla, and a very small book and a very easy read. The first one is to eat real food.
Meaning food that's not processed.
Right.
Or not heavily processed.
Second one is to eat mostly plants.
Okay.
And the last one is not too much. And as my wife, Claire, was reminding me about the other day, one of the pages in here, he talks about, you know if something is not a real food if it has the same name in every language. An example of that is Cheetos.
Or you also know it's probably not a real food if the ingredients paragraph is if it is really a paragraph.
That's true.
I used to frustrate my kids no end. We would go grocery shopping, and if they saw something they'd like, I'd pull it off the shelf and I'd start reading monosodium glutamate to them. I'd read red dye number 6, yellow dye number 2, and I just wanted to let them to know what was in there, and they never forgot that. And on Christmas break, I spent Christmas with them, and for entertainment, I went ahead and did that again in the grocery store. Just
Three
for
last
nostalgia.
quick resources. Dean Ornish, many of you are familiar with the Dean
Yes.
Ornish diet, a book called Spectrum, also an excellent book. Also wanted to show this is what a pound,
What is that?
A pound of fat looks like. It's
Which patient did you remove that from?
It's not from a cadaver. It's a facsimile.
Okay, good.
But when I have people come see me who talk about having lost 5 pounds, I'm impressed. I show that to them. I mean, this is a pound of fat, and that is a lot. So if you're thinking about losing those last 10 pounds,
that's 1 pound.
this is 1 pound.
So if you're obese, you're 20 or 30 pounds.
A lot, yeah.
That's 20. You have 20 or 30 pounds of that on you.
Exactly. And occasionally I work with somebody who, I've got some folks in my practice who weigh 300-400 pounds.
Wow.
And some of them have talked to me about losing 100 pounds. If you can imagine anyone wearing a bodysuit that you put on all of a sudden, we'll give it to Ed here. If you can imagine anyone who puts on a bodysuit of 100 pounds and tells you to stand up would be very difficult.
I mean, look at this thing. It's almost as big as my head. Well, all right, no, it's not as big as my head, but that's a pound.
Yeah.
A pound of fat. I mean, I look at my bike and I think, now there's one beautiful trim machine. Not a pound, not an ounce of fat on my bike. But again, bike, you have a pretty healthy diet, correct?
I do. Nothing but oil too.
I'd also like to plug some resources locally here. Again, looking at, I'll refer your listeners and watchers to some of these resources. Again, Michael Pollan's is a great place to start, a very easy read, really focuses on the importance of a plant-based diet. Also, I wanted to mention, if you look on the internet under Bill Clinton and diet, Bill Clinton, many people know, had a cardiac bypass. After about a year or two after his cardiac bypass, he was eating awful. He had a stent put in his arteries because things had gotten worse again. Then he had Ornish and also Esselstyn consult with his cook at the White House and also in Air Force One. He reversed his heart disease.
Wow.
Heart disease is a disease that can be reversible.
Mm-hmm.
And when people lose weight, typically they reverse diabetes type 2, they reverse heart disease, they reverse sleep apnea, they reverse high cholesterol, high triglycerides. It can be very significant.
What?
Go ahead.
And I mean, looking at the numbers, it's really, this is just out today. In USA Today, it's Americans live sicker and die younger than people in other wealthy countries, and the gap is getting worse. Fewer Americans smoke and drink, but the other bad habits, primarily the consumption of excessive calories, is putting us front at the top of the list of wealthy nations with horrible health problems related to diet and lifestyle.
I was shocked. I think it was on public radio yesterday. They had a program where they were saying that the average American consumes 4,000 calories a day, which is huge. I want to give some resources to our listeners who are local. I know some of these are your sponsors, some not. But there is a new vegan cafe. It's not for everybody, but it's a plant-based approach to living. At least have some meals like that. A place called the New World Cafe in Des Moines, 223 East Walnut in East Village. I heartily recommend that. Of course, the Ritual Cafe, which I think is one of your sponsors, and they've got some good vegan, vegetarian options on their menu. Also, Open Sesame, which I know is one of your sponsors, and I eat there often. Ed and I had lunch there a few months ago. They have some good vegetarian and vegan menu items, and strongly recommend all of those.
Now you're a vegetarian.
I eat a plant-based diet primarily. It is primarily vegan. But occasionally I'll go back and try some things I've eaten in the past. I've done this for the last year.
So cows eat plants. Does that make them plant-based?
No.
that argument's not going to fly.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
But in my already good laboratory values went down even further, improved even further. My doctor, when I saw him a few months ago for my yearly physical, said, David, he said, whatever you're doing, keep on doing it. That's great.
So how long have you been a vegan?
Again, I like to call it plant-based diet rather than vegan.
Sure.
Because I do occasionally eat other things. I've done that for the last year.
Okay.
And initially I found it's a challenge because I wasn't adding any salt as well. I missed some of those foods, but as time went on and I went back to taste some of the things I used to eat, I used to dip as a treat after dinner. I would take Ritz crackers, very high in salt and butter, and I would dip them in butter as an evening snack. I would eat pile cheese on things. And I find that when I go back and try some of those things now that they just don't taste good to me. They taste too rich, too salty. So one's tastes do change over time.
Now, most Americans, according to studies, know that this is a problem. 63% though. Okay, no, which number am I looking for? 6 in 10 people though, even though the vast majority of people know that obesity is a problem. Let's see, 70%. Let's see. Well, okay, so folks think we should be requiring more physical exercise in the schools. They think guidelines on your food items should be available, so you know what you're getting calorie-wise. But 80% of the people support that. But when it comes to doing more to restrict the availability of junk food, people oppose that. Now, I tend to think the wrong questions are being asked. Okay, for example, 60% of people oppose taxes that would target junk food. So they oppose what, for example, Michael Bloomberg has done in New York City. But I think the question should be: would you support eliminating subsidies that make junk food so cheap? I don't know whether you've had those kind of conversations or what your thoughts are on that, but to me, that's the big part of the problem: is the subsidies from our tax dollars that make junk food so inexpensive.
Corn syrup, things like
corn
that.
syrup being the most notable example.
Yeah. I haven't really thought about that issue. But I think there are some significant lifestyle changes that we can all make that can have a significant difference. And of course, exercise is one of those things. Something too that Dean Ornish in his book, I'll hold this up again, in Spectrum by Dean Ornish, MD, founder of the Ornish Diet. He talks about how one of the biggest stressors in our lives in terms of our health is not alcohol, it's not smoking, it's not our diet, it's the lack of social connections. So
really?
Social connections are paramount. Also very important is getting adequate sleep. Lots of studies have shown that not getting enough sleep, people tend to be more overweight.
We are very much a sleep-deprived society.
Yes.
Folks, if you want to join the conversation with Dr. David Drake and myself, it's 244-0077, toll-free 855-244-0077. Let's go to Kathy from Des Moines. Kathy on line 1, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to mention that besides the health benefits of a plant-based diet, there are huge environmental benefits. Global warming, air pollution, water pollution, energy use, water use, land use, overall sustainability. I mean, there are wonderful things. By not eating one hamburger patty, we save enough fuel to drive 20 miles. And, all kinds of things like that.
Now, Kathy, is the issue with meat across the board, or is it with how meat is raised? For example, if you've got confinement animals or, corn-fed cattle or hogs, that's one thing, versus grass-fed beef or pastured poultry or pastured pork, for that matter. Doesn't that make a difference?
That's true. It is a little of each, but some of it, there's nothing you can do. No matter how well you raise the animals, they still emit methane gas into the air, and they still require water. And so it's better for our health if we eat that kind of animal, but it still hurts our environment.
Hi, Kathy. I appreciate your
Hi,
call.
David.
Oh, I know her. I was also thinking of my friend and colleague, Dr. David Spreadbury, who taught my nutrition class at Des Moines University, who's still there now. And he just says that basically raising meat is not sustainable. In other countries, trees have to be cut down. That, of course, affects the ecosphere and the air, and it's not a sustainable practice to do that. Plus, there's also questions about humane treatment of animals, and obviously some places where they're pasture-fed are treating them better. Some other places are, but
I guess I'm gonna be the dissenting voice here, Kathy and David. But this is kind of fun for me to be teamed up on. I do feel there is a way to raise meat sustainably, where the environmental, and you can argue the moral issue. That's another conversation. But in terms of the environmental impact, for example, I have a big vegetable garden. I have about 1,000 square feet of vegetable garden. I also raise chickens. And those chickens provide me an element for my compost that is critical for the health and vitality of my plants. That symbiosis between plants and, in this case, chickens, is great. And I'm
probably a difference though between raising beef and chickens. Raising beef, you need to have the land that they feed off, and chickens, they're just eating whatever.
But cattle are eating grass, which I mean that's not something that we can consume directly. So the cattle eat the grass, convert
But to get
that.
the grass there, people have to cut down trees to grow the grass in third world countries.
Okay, sure, yeah, but
That's what I'm talking about.
but in certain circumstances, I mean, you know, in Iowa, for example, I mean, I guess you could argue against the destruction of the prairies 150 years ago, but right now, you know, we've come a long way since then, and what's wrong with having some of that land in grass?
Kathy may disagree with this. My point today is not meat or not meat. It's about making plants the center of one's diet.
And Kathy, feel free to jump back in, Kathy.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that, again, going back to one hamburger patty, that takes away 5 times the hamburger patty's weight in topsoil. So,
tell me more about that number, where that's from.
Let me see. That is from J. Montovalli.
But what is it based on?
Well, I did tons of research. This is from the Environment magazine. The case against meat evidence shows our meat-based diet is bad for the environment.
But again, I think if that cow is eating corn, or in you know, being fattened in a feedlot, I could see that possibly. I mean, I don't have to crunch the numbers a bit, but if that cow is eating grass, ideally there would be no topsoil loss if that cow is eating grass and that grass is managed properly.
Well, if that were the only problem, that might be true. But there is the methane that the animals emit, which is a horrible greenhouse gas, much worse than carbon dioxide. But on the other hand, if we stop doing that, its half-life is shorter. We can really help global warming quickly by cutting back on meat. And I don't want to cut into David's time anymore, but I did.
Oh no, it is
a really important aspect.
Thanks, Kathy.
We're happy to have your voice, Kathy. No apology needed.
And again, Ed, when I've seen Dean Ornish on the same platform as Dr. Esselstyn, they have differences, but the same focus is plant-centric. Again, there's lots of differences around the periphery about oil or not oil, dairy, not dairy, little meat, no meat, salmon, no salmon. But again, my issue today and point is about making plants the center of one's diet is the healthiest way to go, and agreed upon, I think, by all major nutritionists.
I certainly agree with that as well, and that's been good. I mean, I'm 54. I'm in darn good health, and I'd like to think part of it is because of my diet, and part of it also, again, I have to thank my bike for allowing me to log 3,000 miles on her this year, and again, look at that, not an ounce of fat on her. Look at that. Is that a nice looking bike or what?
And I do agree. Volume matters, and the type of meat matters. Beef is probably really the worst for the environment, too.
And what would you say about hunting in that case?
I think that's a whole different issue.
Okay.
What I say about it, you probably don't want to hear.
Probably. Well, we should have a conversation about that sometime. But again, I thank you for the call, Kathy. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kathy.
I think, what do we do in terms of policy, David? Again, a lot of this is individual choice, and you'll find agreement on that probably across the political spectrum. But at some point, we have to confront the reality that there are policies in place, laws in place, subsidies in place that make junk food affordable, that make that create the scenario that has allowed health to get so bad in this country.
Well, I hope you'll invite David Spreadbury, PhD, professor of nutrition at Des Moines University. He'll have a lot to say about this. You know, I think one of the concerns right now is with the USDA and the pressure that they have from the meat industry and the dairy industry and decisions they make, and on recommendations they make for schools. As you know, there was a controversy some months ago where the USDA was going to have a meatless Monday.
Right.
Boy, was there reaction by Iowa legislators about that.
Yeah, I remember
Congress
that.
folks, and they did away with it. But they did that because it was the healthiest way to go. There was also a study that the USDA funded to find out the healthiest diet changes for Americans. It came out very strongly plant-centric. And what did they do, according to Dr. David Spreadbury, is they greatly diluted the report down from what it was saying. Again, because of pressure, supposedly because of the meat industry and the dairy industry. Some people say that should be regulated by USDA, but they shouldn't have the kind of influence that they have on recommendations.
Well, David, sometime you and I are going to have to try a new venue for lunch, Hawk Restaurant.
I've been there.
Have you been there? It's the corner of East 5th and Walnut, and very impressed. 90% of the food that Suman Hawk gets in his restaurant is from local sources. 90%. And it's not a vegetarian place. Sort of plenty of meat, but there are plenty of vegetarian options. But what appeals to me is the fact that this guy really gets the importance of local foods.
He's married to a Des Moines University medical student.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
All right, good. Good to know. David, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck with your work.
Thank you.
And we need to get our bikes together, and maybe they'll go for a ride someday.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of the show. Gateway is at 20th and Woodland. They're in the Sherman Hill neighborhood. They're a full-service grocery store, and I had dinner there last night, folks. I'd never tried the ramen. Excellent stuff. And you can also, of course, get breakfast there, lunch there, and they have a fantastic catering service as well. And they've got some darn good wine on sale, by the way. Check it out. Gateway Market at 20th and Woodland, our neighborhood grocery store. Keep your money local. I'll be back in a few minutes, folks. Stay tuned for part 2 of the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day one of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. Can't seem to locate Dr. Karen Huffer, so we're going to have to reschedule her. Not sure what happened with that. Got a lot of feedback on the issue of obesity. Jim writes, we have taxes on other public health disasters, cigarettes, for example, alcohol, gas. Lindsay Lohan. Jim, I like your sense of humor. Why not unhealthy food? Well, again, we do the opposite. We tax, we provide subsidies to unhealthy food. Go figure. Kim writes, how about we eliminate high fructose corn syrup like the Canadians have done? Tax all the companies that feel it necessary to add it to their foods. I didn't realize Canada had done that. We need to look north and see what's going on. Jim writes, a tax on sugar would do it. And there are probably worse things out there than sugar, but he's probably right. Shannon writes, eliminating subsidies would solve tons of problems, including cheap fake foods. Maggie writes, amen, Shannon. Chris writes, regular sugar is better for you than fructose or any other substitute. And that was my point. Chris is correct on that. Jamie writes, arrest and incarcerate anyone with a body mass index over 30. I think he's kidding. Christian writes, the tax on the size of soda is ridiculous. I am very liberal generally about things like this, but that said, you can only go so far protecting someone from themselves. Yeah, I agree with that, but again, we're also going way further than we need to do to support bad decisions through public subsidies. Yeah, Jennifer writes, eliminate subsidies. Julie writes, yikes. I'm not sure what that means. Zach writes, in England, you can lose your health benefits for being obese. I did not know that. I didn't know anybody could lose their health benefits in England. I'm not sure what that means. That warrants research. Or if you're English and listening to this show, give me a call, 244-0077. Dan writes, end the Cuba embargo. Well, that's a great idea for a number of reasons. We get real sugar, and I suspect nothing else would so weaken the Castro regime. Okay. Becky writes, I think, and she says, as a person that has a BMI, body mass index, high enough to be incarcerated, okay, that the subsidy on high fructose corn syrup needs to go. It won't help my generation, but if sugary snacks get harder to get, future generations may not be as hooked on sweets. Amos writes, how about a tax on taxing people extra for exercising their right to put whatever they want in their bodies? Okay, whatever. And John writes, eat less and run around the block once in a while. Radical, I know. And Sherry writes, finally, subsidize carrots, not corn. Well, you know, there is kind of a general recurring theme there that the public subsidies for the wrong kinds of foods are maybe the best place to start. Okay, that could be a conversation that continues a while, folks. Plenty more we could talk about that. Again, I'd hope to have Karen Huffer on to talk about her perspective as a marriage and family therapist on the horrific shooting at Sandy Hook in Newtown, Connecticut. We're going to have that conversation some other day. And I'm delighted that Clementine Carl is with me in the studio. Clementine is one of the 33 state workers, one of the naughty state employees who had the audacity to be fired from your job only to be rehired.
Well, interestingly enough, I am no longer even a state employee.
No.
Oh, so that my name appeared in the newspaper as being associated with that whole issue. I find that I have no privacy, that because I worked for the state once or was fired and brought back, forever after, that could still be an issue for me.
You were fired.
Correct.
You, at some point, were rehired.
Correct.
Now you're working somewhere else.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So why were you fired in the first place?
It was an issue where a group of us did not work well together, and someone's health was in jeopardy.
What department were you in?
We worked at Woodward Resource Center.
Okay. There were a lot of issues there.
Yes. And my name was on the signed paperwork, so I was the one that got terminated. Although, really, I think everyone agreed that I was no more at fault than many other people involved.
Was there some kind of a review of your job performance, or review of the reasons for dismissal?
Somebody took a lethal dose of a medication.
Mm.
So the person failed to I failed to keep it safe from one of my residents who was walking by and decided to swallow it.
It's hard to control that, isn't it?
Well, and it is. Yeah. Yes.
You're working in a very volatile
I was staring
environment.
at my paperwork and making sure that my signature was where it needed to be, not staring at somebody else's client. Yeah. So, and I would say that I definitely had a role to play, that I could have worked harder to keep the medication out of her hands, but it wasn't only my mistake.
Right. But God, you talk about mistakes. That is an environment waiting for mistakes to happen.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that eventually I did go through the levels of appeals, and eventually a panel of state management and union representatives agreed that I should not have been terminated. And at that time, my understanding was that all of the paperwork had been sealed and that was the end of the issue. I was working for the state again. I had never been terminated. That was the end of it. Until here it is 4 years later, and I find myself in the Des Moines Register.
Yeah. Are you getting lots of angry phone calls, angry letters, people walking by you on the street and scowling at you?
No, that's something I've managed to avoid, thankfully.
Good. Well, and how is it that, the register is always clamoring about open records, and I tend to agree with them on that, but this is an area where there's, I think, some grayness to it.
Right. My personnel file should not be open for all of taxpayers to see. I think that that's too much to ask of an employee.
And would other corporations, for example, be required to release information about their employees to that extent?
Well, I pay, the come and go people's salaries. Can I look through their personnel files? No.
What do you mean you pay
I'm trying to think of a similar situation.
Well, maybe the argument in this case is you're a state employee, you're paid for by tax dollars, thus everything about your life as an employee should be public record.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I understand the argument. I think it goes too far. Mm-hmm. But maybe it should. Maybe there should be a little bit more transparency than.
Right.
But again, this is a really good. I don't think I'm hoping and assuming that this has not affected your life too adversely.
Well, I'm not so sure that I have seen the entire scope of. I haven't heard from, I work PRN at my current position, and I haven't heard from them since Sunday. Now, I don't know if I was to not hear from them anyway because there are no hours available, or if they have discovered that I had a termination in my record that I hadn't reported. Okay. It's the scope really is hard to predict.
Yeah, and again, a termination in a very volatile work environment that resulted in an investigation that basically, maybe it's exonerated. Is that the right word, or is that too? I don't know what official word the state would have.
I think exonerated is probably a little overly.
But they didn't find you.
They did not find me, and I was not found. By the Department of Inspections and Appeals to be an abuser.
And you were rehired.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how much you know about the other 33 people who were on that list.
Well, a number of them are from Woodward Resource Center because they do tend to need to fire people. And I honestly think the reason Woodward Resource Center needs to be so heavy-handed with use of the termination is because of the media. Every single thing that they do, they need to consider how it's going to read in the media. So they need to fire first rather than see that they appeared to accept what could be construed as abusive behavior.
Right. Folks, talking with Clementine Carl today. She's one of the 33 state employees who were featured in the Register's non-story. Many of us felt it was a ridiculous story, and there were a couple letters to the editor today that said as much as well, which I want to share those with you when we come back. But you're welcome to join the conversation. Maybe you think there's an issue. Maybe you think the Register did us a public service, but I tend to think not. Clementine certainly doesn't think they did. Give us a call, though, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation in any way, shape, or form at 244-0077 or toll-free 855-244-0077. 0077. I want to thank Baber's Neighbors for kicking off this segment of the show with their tune "Ode to Jones." I also want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of our show. You probably heard me say it before, folks, but you ought to get an energy audit done. Tim Reynolds will do one for free. It'll be a lot more thorough than anything you'll get done by Mid-American Energy. It'll cost you nothing, and again, Tim will find things in your home. I guarantee you, there's not a home out there that can't be improved when it comes to energy efficiency. He'll save you money. He'll reduce your carbon footprint. You'll give him a big hug and send him on his way without paying him a penny, at least for the audit. Again, if you decide to do some of the work he recommends, there's a cost involved, but oftentimes there are rebates available, so you get a big chunk of that cost paid for. So give him a shout, folks, 802-2801. Tim Reynolds at 802-2801 or ReynoldsEnergySolutions.com. We'll be back in a few minutes, folks, with more conversation on the situation regarding the register's story on state employees.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey folks, it's Ed Fallon. I want to tell you about saving energy and saving money. Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions will give you a comprehensive energy audit that will cost you nothing. And Tim will identify the many ways in which you can reduce energy use while saving money. Now, I had Tim over for an audit last month, and I was amazed, I tell you, at how much energy was going through the roof, out the windows, the back door. You get it. So before the cold winds of winter really blow hard, give Tim a call at 802-2801. That's 802-2801.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito online, fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano, and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruit cake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
That's Pumptown, folks, and that's their tune, Bicycle, named after my bicycle. You didn't know that. You didn't know you had a tune named after you, did you?
Actually, I did.
You did?
I did.
Well, you're a smart bike, anyway.
I'm a psychic.
You're a psychic bike?
I'm a psychic bike.
A psychical.
Yes.
Bicycle. All right, anyway, we're going to stop having
Okay.
fun with words. Too much abuse of the English language here. I'm bound to get a fine for that. Welcome back to the conversation. Clementine Carl joining us. You're welcome to call in as well, folks, at 244-0077 or toll free. It's 855-244-0077. I want to reference a couple letters to the editor this morning that I thought hit the nail on the head both times. The first one, the Des Moines Register is wrong. They cut to the chase. That's Marty Ryan. Marty's good at cutting to the chase. It says discipline records are personnel records. The Register suggests a simple change in the open records law. However, the law is more complex. Another chapter of Iowa law addresses how current employees may obtain copies of information in their personnel record, and a former employee, according to a federal lawsuit, cannot have access at all, well, because the person is no longer an employee. That's simple enough. So Marty asks, why should the Register claim a right to information in personnel records when the employee must go through hoops of all sorts to receive only limited information, and a former employee does not even have access? You know, I think his point is they've gone way too far. Now, the other letter is from Kevin Picorni, and he writes, the Register's investigation found a non-issue. I totally agree with that. He says he talks about the 33 state employees, and that warranted a front page coverage plus 2 inside full pages and apparently subsequent articles. We continue to see articles on it. Let's see, that represents about 0.0017% of approximately 19,000 executive branch employees. Yeah, 20,000 state employees, and that's 0.0017%. Why is this
5 years?
What?
33 people fired and brought back across 5 years.
In 5 years, that's a good point, over a 5-year period. So why is this a story, Kevin asks? Even some of the fired employees returned to their jobs because their termination was overturned by an arbitrator. For example, my guest, Clementine Carl. So the Register's investigation resulted in finding a non-issue. Please focus your investigation on something with far more consequences in the future, and there are no shortage of issues out there that ought to apply. So Clementine, I mean, your response to those letters, I mean, you're probably going to find them favorable.
Yes, I think that they both make good points.
Okay, so what, I mean,
the number issue, I think, is very good because it shows why speakers are saying it's a non-issue. There's 33 experiences out of 19,000 times 5 years. Why is that?
So it's 33 out of 100,000.
Right.
33 cases out of 100,000 years worth of employees. That's maybe that's a Governor Branstad way of measuring numbers, but still, your point is well taken.
And why is it even necessarily costing taxpayers money? I know personally a few of the people, myself being one of them, that were reinstated, and it didn't cost the taxpayers any money. The people were reinstated. They didn't get back pay. The union people that represented them in the discussions were working voluntarily. So it doesn't affect the taxpayers.
Yeah. But the damage that the Register has done with this non-story is, of course, it's given the folks at the State House who do not like public employees, most notably Governor Branstad, some fuel to heap on their fire.
Right.
And it's hard to say where it's going to go. We've seen where this issue has gone in other states. Wisconsin is now in the history books for what Scott Walker did to public employees unions there. Michigan as well. Indiana. I mean, this stuff has been happening across the Midwest, across the country. The most notable battles have been here in the Midwest. And I have no doubt that Governor Branstad would like to get rid of, again, maybe I shouldn't put words in his mouth, but I would not be surprised to learn that he, deep down inside, really would just love to get rid of the public employees union.
Right. And the unfortunate thing is, I don't think that the public realizes what sacrifices public employees already make. 2 years ago, they took furloughs and then went without a tenth of their pay at Christmas time. Then when the budget is in the black again, there's no gratitude that it was at the expense of the income earned by the employees.
And Branstad finds a way to basically increase his salary by $50,000.
Right.
Yeah. I do not know why the public is not more outraged about some of these things. The hypocrisy of that. And again, I think it's good that public employees, agree to those furloughs. I think it's good.
Right, yes.
And I don't know how you feel about the issue of public employees paying something into their health care.
And I think that would, there are many of those issues where the public employees realize that we are part of the world and that everybody's medical costs are rising, and that we would like to be a part of that. The issue is that what's being put forward is always so much more than is reasonable, that our leadership doesn't know where to begin defending our rights.
When you say leadership, you mean?
I'm referring to the AFSCME leadership.
Leadership of the union.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you're under attack from so many directions.
Correct.
And I know there are public employees who are schleps.
Mm-hmm.
There are not many of them, and there are employees who are schleps, whether they're in the nonprofit sector or in the private sector. You name it. There's always going to be a bad employee or 2 or 3 or 4 out there.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just human nature. Mm-hmm. And you need a system in place to try to help identify those problems, fix them if you can. Send them packing if there's no other option. But to pretend that public employees are, do you remember Zeman, the state senator from Northeast Iowa, who called public employees bottom feeders?
Right.
And that's unfortunately an attitude that some Republicans have.
The lazy state worker is like an urban myth. There are no people who, at my position at Woodward Resource Center, we worked every other weekend without fail. If it snowed and people couldn't come into work, we were going to stay there working until more people could come. Those services are provided no matter what. And when people complain about their taxes going to these things, services for people with intellectual disabilities or mental illness or any number of health issues, those services have to be provided. We wouldn't want to live in a world or a state in which we just sent those people away to fend for themselves.
Or we wouldn't want to live in a city or a state where the highways and roads were poorly maintained.
Correct.
Or in my point of view, where the bike trails are poorly maintained. And we expect, for example, if you're a hunter, you expect to have your request for a hunting license processed efficiently. Ideally, the license is affordable. Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be, when you find your area, the thing you're concerned about. Yeah, you want that to be funded adequately. You want that service to be delivered professionally. So and I'm not this, and I will agree with the people who say government needs to be streamlined, but let's make sure we understand what that means. That means it should be run efficiently.
Right.
And I never say efficiently like a business, because I've seen too many businesses that are run very horribly. I mean, look at Wall Street, folks. Look at the bailouts. Run efficiently, sure. Run responsibly. You don't want people doing work that isn't really needed.
Right.
But, as somebody who was, in state government for 14 years, there were times when I was critical of state agencies or departments that I felt were not acting responsibly, or individuals who, one of my favorite examples is Ramona Cunningham. I called attention to her back in '93, way before the organic nutrient matter ever hit the fan, and I couldn't get Republicans or Democrats to take that concern seriously. So there are definitely employees out there who are misusing their position, who are abusing the public trust. But let's not kid ourselves. That's a minority.
Right.
That's a small percentage, and to start coming after the entire realm of public employees for that, whether it's the Des Moines Register or Governor Branstad, is wrong, and it deceives the public about the importance of the work that you all do, and distracts people, I think, from the real issues that ought to be discussed.
Absolutely.
So what's next for you?
That's a great question. I wish I knew the answer.
Yeah. I really hope that this Register story does not impact you professionally or personally, and I hope the same for the other people who've been basically hung out as the examples in this witch hunt.
Well, and I hope it doesn't continue to be a story indefinitely, or that it doesn't come out again in 5 years. That something that I thought it was gone. I thought it was struck from everything. Yeah.
Well, we shall see what happens. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Clementine. I wish you luck. And again, I feel like you're a bit of a whistleblower. Even though the Register, is you probably, I mean, maybe you didn't even see this coming. You probably just heard about it. I mean, did you know this was going to happen?
No, absolutely not. My foster father emailed me and said, God, you're famous.
You're
and
famous.
I had to start scrambling to figure out what he was talking about.
Famous, yeah. Well, I hope your fame continues, but in different areas. Again, I mean, folks at the Des Moines Register, come on, Randy Evans, come on, Rick Green, come on. Yeah, folks, get a real story, okay? Get on a beat that really talks about something important. And you do that sometimes. I mean, yeah, the story that they did on the on water quality and how that was affecting the Gulf, great story. This one was a waste of resources. Anyway, maybe some people will discontinue their subscriptions over it. I'll probably have to continue because I do believe the paper does play an important role, even though I do wish it was still locally owned. Okay, folks, tomorrow we're going to talk with Dr. Charles Goldman is going to guest host with me, and we're going to talk about the death penalty and about gun control in light of the Sandy Hook massacre. And we're going to talk specifically, too, about what we might expect to see happen at the Iowa State House this year on both those issues. Personally, obviously, I hope nothing happens on the death penalty. I think Iowa has been well served by an approach to managing violent crime that does not include death penalty. We're one of actually, the number of states that have abolished the death penalty is growing, and so that's encouraging. Hopefully, we'll continue to be a beacon on that front. But there are, of course, those who, in light of the recent and tragic, the tragic killings of those two girls in Lynn County, that see that as an excuse, a reason to want to reinstate the death penalty. I hope there's no action on it myself. I do hope there is some action on gun control. And let's be clear. You can say, I support the Second Amendment. I support people's rights to own guns. But let's make a distinction between what you might use to defend yourself or to hunt or collector's items. Let's make a distinction between those and assault weapons. There's no reason why you need to be owning an assault weapon. Anyway, Charles Goldman has done a lot of thinking about this. He'll be helping me with that conversation tomorrow. I hope you'll stick around for that. And I hope you'll stick around for Bradshaw. Bradshaw will be with you at 1:30 today. He's not sure what he's talking about today, and maybe he's not sure either. Actually, no, my bad. He's off today. He'll be back tomorrow, as will I. So I want to thank Webcast One Live for hosting this show in their studio in the Skywalk across from Palmer's Deli. I want to thank Maddie Arrington for being my wonderful producer. I want to thank all you folks for tuning in, and stick around tomorrow. I'll be back at 12 noon on the Fallon Forum.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave. and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right, or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.